where software quality lives, breathes, and keeps evolving.
Welcome to the Quality Beat podcast. Today we're diving into a major challenge in modern software testing, the sheer scale of automated test suites causing slower feedback, rising infrastructure costs, and difficulty figuring out which tests actually need to run every time code changes. This run everything all the time approach slows down delivery and frustrates teams. So how can we make automated testing smarter and faster? Joining us today is Manisha Mittal and Apruva Singh, who will introduce an exciting solution called MACTX, a multi-agent testing framework designed to tackle exactly this problem. So welcome to the show both.
Thank you, Gurpreet.
Thanks, Gurpreet. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's great to have you. And before we get started, we always like to begin with a quick icebreaker round. So let's get you warmed up with a quick fire round of questions. Are you ready?
Yes, we are ready and excited for this conversation, Gurpreet.
Great. Okay. So first of all then, Manisha, when you're not revolutionizing test automation, what do you love to do to unwind?
So Gurpreet, whenever I get some time away from work, so I like to slow things down and I just relax. So I enjoy spending quiet time on my own. I read books or simply I just take a break from the screens and the constant activity. So it helps me recharge and then come back with a fresh mind.
Definitely. I think everybody working in IT can relate to that, taking a break from the screens. Okay, next one then for you, Apurva. If you could automate one part of your daily life outside of work, what would it be and why?
Probably overthinking. I think if I could manage that better, it'd save a lot of time and energy for me. And maybe focus more on actually solving problems instead of thinking about them too much.
Completely agree. If you ever find a solution to that, do let me know. And next one then. So books, podcasts, or websites, Manisha, what's your go-to source for staying inspired or learning new testing insights?
So for me, I think learning is all about staying connected with these global testing groups and keeping up with the emerging trends in AI, the latest trends, and then continuously learning through our hands-on experiences in our day-to-day project cycle. So at this stage, I think it is less about just consuming the information and it is more about interpreting, applying and sharing those insights at scale. And see, ultimately, real understanding of quality comes from how effectively we translate these ideas into impact.
100% agree. It's always about putting that learning into perspective there. And finally, so this one might be a bit controversial, but Apurva, what's your take? Manual testing, automated testing, or something in between?
Yeah, Gurpreet. So I think the real debate is never the manual versus automation. It's always the thoughtful testing versus the mechanical testing. So automation helps us with consistency and speed, while manual testing helps you to explore and find the unexpected issues. You need definitely both. And the right balance is what quality actually brings in.
Great. Thanks for sharing those. It's always fascinating to see the person behind the process. And with that in mind now, let's jump into how MACTX is changing the way we think about testing. So to start, Manisha, could you please explain what MACTX is and how it changes the traditional testing approach?
Absolutely. So Gurpreet, MACT is a concept and which means multi-agent cooperative testing. And MACTX is the system that brings this concept to the life. So instead of asking like how to execute the tests, we ask what should we run and why. So why are we testing everything when code changes tells us what to test? So our focus shifts from running everything to what has changed. So this solution uses AI agents to analyze the code, the risk, the context, and the history to decide the minimum effective test set that can be executed.
I see. So you're going straight to what you think needs to be tested, right? So now, why is this kind of intelligent, context-aware test execution necessary today? Are there some downsides of traditional run all test pipelines, and what kind of pain points does MACTX address?
So if we see most of the organizations today, they have very large automation suites. So sometimes thousands of tests are being executed as a part of regression, and the pipelines still follow a run everything approach. So this leads to several challenges. One is like CI/CD pipelines takes longer to complete, then infrastructure cost increases, then the flaky tests further slow down the releases, and then team has to wait for hours for getting the feedback. So this MACT tries to solve this by making the test execution contextual and risk aware. So instead of running the entire regression suite every time, and this solution takes a smarter and a more targeted approach, and it focuses on understanding like what has changed within the system, and then it identifies, okay, which tests are truly necessary to execute now. So rather than wasting the time and resources running every possible test, so this solution helps streamline the process by prioritizing the most relevant ones.
I see. So it really does sound like MACT is about smart automation that understands the risks and context. And so this now raises the question, right? Apurva, I wonder if you can speak to this. Where did the inspiration for this approach come from?
Yeah, definitely. So interestingly, the inspiration came from observing how experienced testers think. For example, a human tester naturally says, if the checkout logic changed, then we have to run the payment tests. If there are UI changes only, the backend regression may not be needed. Authentication module touched, then the security test must run. So we thought, what if we could model this human reasoning into a system of specialized agents? That idea evolved into MACT.
I see. And so when you mention experienced human testers and the way in which they think about changes and risks, can you go into a bit more detail around how human reasoning actually inspired the design behind this? So, for example, how does a human tester's intuition translate into an automated system?
That's a great question. The core idea was to translate how a human tester thinks into how a system decides. A human tester doesn't look at the entire system uniformly. They subconsciously ask many questions like, what changed? How critical is that area? What could break because of this? We model this intuition using agents as independent thinking units. Each agent represents a specific dimension of that reasoning. For example, a risk agent focuses on impact, similar to how a tester identifies a high-risk area. A regression agent decides how deep the validation should go. A sanity agent ensures basic coverage is never skipped. So instead of one system trying to do everything, we break human reasoning into specialized decision blocks. So when combined all together, this creates a system that doesn't just execute the test, it reasons about what needs to be tested, much like an experienced tester would.
I see. So the goal was to translate that human expertise into a system that can make similarly nuanced decisions at scale and consistently, which makes complete sense. Now, you've mentioned these agents multiple times. I'm just wondering, can you break down what an agent means in this context? So how do they work inside MACTX, and what kind of decisions do they make?
Sure. So let's talk about first what are agents. So agents are small decision modules, and each of these agents are responsible for analyzing a specific testing dimension. And from an implementation perspective, each agent returns three things. So one, a score, second, a confidence, and third is recommendation. So what we are doing, instead of a one big decision, we are breaking it into a multiple specialized evaluations.
I see. So I get the sense that you're isolating risk. So instead of this one big monolithic decision, you've got multiple smaller experts looking at the problem from different angles. Now, I'm just wondering, do these agents then work in isolation or do they collaborate somehow? Because, testing is often a team effort. So I'm wondering, are these agents talking to each other and refining their decisions? How does that process work?
Mhm. So that's really the key idea here, Gurpreet. So what we are doing is these agents don't work in isolation. So they work together in a very highly collaborative way. Like each agent begins with its own area of focus, but they continuously share signals through a common context layer. And so what happens? So when one agent identifies something important is happening, others can take that into account. So it signals them. So for example, I'll take one example here. Let's say if the risk agent identifies a high impact change. So it is going to publish that as a signal, and the other agents like the regression agent or the security agent, and then they will adjust their evaluation based on this input which is received from the risk agent.
Right.
So what this creates is a collaborative decision making ecosystem rather than a collection of having these isolated evaluations. So these outcome becomes more refined, more contextual, and ultimately more accurate because it is driven by combined intelligence. And if you see, in many ways it is mirroring how experienced QA teams collaborate and are aligning around the risk before making any testing decisions in our day-to-day life.
Certainly, yeah, it does sound like it's very much a team event where different, like where everybody's got a strategy, right? So you've got different specialists sharing knowledge before deciding what the actual course of action is and the final game plan. Now, once all of these agents have shared their insights, how is that final test execution plan put together? So do you have some sort of a centralized component that governs these inputs? Apurva, over to you.
Yes, Gurpreet, definitely. So there is a centralized component, and that's called the decision engine. Once all the agents have shared their insights, the decision engine acts like a conductor, bringing everything together into a coherent execution plan. It doesn't just collect the input, it evaluates and governs them. For example, it applies the scoring threshold to filter out the weak or low confidence signals. It prioritizes the certain agents based on the context, like giving more weight to the risk or sanity whenever needed. It resolves the conflicts between the recommendations. It derives the overall confidence level for the decision. So instead of simply merging the outputs, it creates a structured and balanced plan based on all the perspectives. And importantly, the outcome remains transparent and controllable. QA engineers can still review or override the decisions if needed. So yes, there is a central layer, but it's not just controlling, it's orchestrating decision in a consistent, explainable, and a trustworthy way.
I see. Right. So the decision engine almost acts like the conductor, and it's harmonizing every agent's recommendations into a coherent and prioritized test plan. Now, the only thing with that is intelligent systems sometimes become black boxes, right? So it can be really hard for testers or managers to actually trust the decisions. I'm just wondering if you could speak on how MACTX keeps things transparent and explainable so that users know why certain tests were selected.
Yes. So explainability was actually one of the core design principles from the day one. We didn't want MACT to feel like a black box that just says run these tests without any context. Instead, every decision comes with a clear reason behind it. So rather than simply saying run the regression, MACTX explains it in a way a tester would understand. For example, regression recommended because high-risk area was impacted, detected by the risk agent with a score 0.7, let's say, confidence medium. So you are not just seeing the outcome, you are seeing the thinking behind that outcome. And all of this is captured and stored as decision artifacts, which means teams can review the past decisions, they can audit why something was executed, and debug if something doesn't behave as expected. So in a way, MACTX doesn't just automate testing, it also documents its own reasoning, which builds a lot of trust within the teams.
Of course, ensuring trust, and it sounds like it's enabling debugging when things don't behave as expected. And so for MACTX to to provide the ability to make these well-informed decisions. I'm just wondering, we must need some sort of rich data about the current test run. So where does MACTX get this information from? And I'm wondering, can you share an example of what this execution context looks like?
So that's again a great question, Gurpreet. So I'll explain it like the quality of the decision now really depends upon the quality of the context, right?
Yeah.
So MACTX relies on what we call an execution context, as we spoke about it, and which is a snapshot of what is happening in the system at this moment. So what it does is it pulls in a range of signal to understand the full picture of change, what is going on. Then it includes the things like which files or which modules were updated, like which Git branch or commit is involved in it, or what kind of release it is, whether it is a small patch or a major update. And even how the run was triggered, such as was it through a CI/CD pipeline, or it is a scheduled execution, or it is a manual run. So you see, all of those context helps us helps our solution to make a much smarter decision about what needs to be executed. So instead of treating every test run the same, this solution understands the situation around the change. I'll give you an example. Like if a commit only touches the UI components, so the MACTX recognizes the context, and it will avoid triggering the backend or API tests which are not required at this time. But if it detects the changes in something critical, like let's say checkout or authentication, then the context immediately signals the higher risk, and the decision is adapted accordingly. So in simple terms, I can say execution context is what allows the MACTX to move from run everything to run what actually matters for this specific change. And that's what makes the decisions both relevant and reliable.
Absolutely. It sounds like it's key. So the system is always analyzing where and how the tests are triggered. And so it's actually real world context that's driving focused test selection in this case. Just going into that slightly deeper now, does using MACTX mean that teams have to give up their existing test frameworks, or is this something that fits alongside tools that they might be using, such as Selenium or Playwright?
Not at all. They don't have to give up their existing frameworks. And that's actually one of the key strengths of MACTX. So it is completely framework agnostic. You don't have to replace anything you already use. So I would say the easiest way to think about it is this acts as a decision intelligence layer that sits on top of your existing testing ecosystem. So whether you are using Playwright, or you are using Selenium, or you are using API testing frameworks, or even if you are using performance tools, those remains exactly as they are.
Right.
So the solution simply answers one question over here, like what should we run right now? Okay. And once that decision is made, your existing tools take over and they execute the test as usual. So nothing has to change. And so instead of disrupting your setup, MACTX actually enhances it by making your current framework smarter, more focused, and more efficient.
Certainly, yeah, because it is literally that smarter decision layer on top. And so once MACTX decides what tests to run, how is that executed in practice? Now, I think this one might be a bit of a difficult one to explain, given that we're currently on an audio format. So it is a bit abstract to imagine, but I'm just wondering if you could share an example of how test commands might change based on MACTX decisions.
Sure, let me try. So let me break it down simply first, Gurpreet. So MACTX first analyzes the changes and then it will decide which tests are relevant, and then it will trigger the execution using our existing tools. So instead of running everything, it moves to run what actually matters for this change. For example, let's say we have a Playwright framework, and in Playwright framework, there is a change in the critical area like checkout. So instead of running the full test suite, full regression suite, what will MACTX will do? It will pick up few basic sanity tests around the checkout and a few tests related to the checkout risk, and then some focused regression around this. And
So-
then it runs only those selected tests through Playwright.
Okay.
So now if we have to execute the same thing on the Selenium, the solution is again the same. So it is again going to pick up a few basic sanity tests in Selenium and the tests which are related to the checkout risk, and then the focused regression will take place. So here I would say, the key takeaway here is that your tools don't change, your framework does not change. So what change is the decision behind the execution. So this MACTX ensures that right set of tests are being selected and they are executed efficiently.
It definitely sounds like something useful because it's more of an assistant rather than a strict gatekeeper. Obviously, it's recommending the smartest test subsets, but the overall final decision is with the engineer, which is exactly how AI should be used, in my opinion. Now, after those tests run, what kind of reporting can teams expect? I'm just wondering, how do stakeholders see the reasoning behind test selections and results?
Yes, Gurpreet. So MACTX doesn't just give you the test results, it gives you the decision intelligence. Every run produces two key outputs. One is a decision report, which clearly explains why certain tests were selected, and another is an execution report, which shows how those tests actually performed. And on top of that, we provide a dashboard view where teams can see which agents influenced the decision, how confident the system was, and how strong the decision was, and the complete reasoning behind it. So instead of just seeing the pass or failure, you would understand the why behind every test run. So MACTX makes testing not just executable, but explainable, observable, and trustworthy, I would say. Yeah.
Yeah, and this kind of visibility would help build further confidence in the system. And obviously, it would let teams continuously refine their testing strategies as well. So for an organization thinking about adopting something like MACTX, what would you say the key benefits are that they should expect both in testing efficiency and business outcomes?
Yeah, on a high level, MACTX changes two major things: speed and confidence. On the efficiency side, teams can see significantly faster CI/CD pipelines, reduce the infrastructure cost, and far fewer unnecessary test executions. On the quality side, it brings more intelligent, risk-based coverage, complete visibility into testing decisions, and a higher confidence in every release. But the real impact is that you are no longer running more tests to feel safe. You are running the right test to be confident. And over time, that shift can take regression cycles from hours down to minutes. So in one line, I would say MACTX doesn't just optimize testing, it transforms how teams achieve speed, cost, efficiency, and confidence altogether.
Correct. And shaving hours off of regression runs definitely can make a tangible difference in delivery velocity and team morale. Of course, building such a sophisticated system is definitely not easy. So let's hear about what some of the toughest challenges you faced in creating MACTX.
Yeah, so one of the biggest challenges was balancing collaboration with control. So MACTX is built on multiple agents working together, but if they influence each other too much, the system becomes unpredictable. And if they don't collaborate enough, you lose the intelligence. So we had to carefully design the clear scoring mechanism, well-defined confidence levels, and strict decision thresholds. The second big challenge was trust. We didn't want a system that just gives answers. We wanted one that explains them. So making every decision transparent, explainable, and auditable was critical to us. Building MACTX wasn't just about making it smart. It was making it reliable, predictable, and trustworthy at scale.
It definitely sounds like you've architected a reliable decision system, which requires careful balancing between flexibility and control. And so looking ahead now, where do you see MACTX going, and how might learning and adaptation play a larger role in future versions of this?
Yeah, so this is where MAC test becomes really exciting. So even today, the solution uses learning signals and it is adapting. So it is learning like from the historical test results, flaky test detection, and also from the past execution patterns. So for example, if a test has been unstable, let's say, a flaky agent can flag it. So unreliable tests don't distort the decisions, but this is just the beginning, I would say. And the next step is making the solution truly adaptive. And these agents continuously learn from the, as I said, defect history, failure trends, module volatility, and even the production incidents. So instead of just reaching to the current change, the system starts learning from how the application behaves over the time. And in simple terms, to understand, today MACTX is context aware. Maybe tomorrow it becomes experience aware, and that's our vision here for the MACTX. And this is a system that does not just decide what to test, but continuously it is getting better at deciding what needs to be tested.
You said it perfectly, Manisha. The vision of self-learning, really, that is effectively what the future of intelligent testing is. And so to wrap up now, if you had to sum up MACTX in one sentence for our listeners, how would you describe it?
So Gurpreet, if I had to sum it up in one line, MACTX transforms testing from execution to intelligent decision making. So instead of asking, did we run all the tests? We start asking, did we run the right test for the right reasons? And how confident are we in that decision? And that shift is powerful because testing is no longer just a step in a pipeline. It becomes as the thinking system that guides quality. So in simple terms, MACTX doesn't just make the testing faster, it makes it smarter, more focused, and truly reliable for modern software delivery.
It definitely sounds promising. And thank you both so much for joining and unpacking MACTX. You've given us a fascinating look at how multi-agent intelligence could revolutionize test automation and software delivery.
Yeah, thank you, Gurpreet. So it was a great conversation and we are really excited about where the space is heading. And it is amazing to share how testing can evolve from execution into this intelligent decision making.
Thanks, Gurpreet. Really enjoyed this discussion. For us, this is just the beginning. If MACTX can help even a few teams move from running everything to running what truly matters, that's already a big win.
Certainly, exciting times ahead. And to our listeners out there, if you're tired of long test runs and slow feedback, consider how intelligent test selection could change your workflow. And if you've enjoyed this episode, please share it with your team. Until next time, keep testing smarter, not harder.